Good evening, everyone. Welcome to today's session where we will be talking about some last minute tips on XAT. Now, let's first of all understand that the preparation time for all of us has finished. What's left is now executing whatever you have practiced. So it's all about execution right now. Okay. You just have to remember a few things. What does really XLRI look for in the candidates? Right? They're looking for people with clarity of thought. Right? So this exam, 170 minutes is enough time that you can attempt all questions. Right? So it is not about speed. And also, it is not just about knowledge, it is about how you perform under pressure, right? That mostly tests you on clarity of thought and what decisions can you make under pressure, right? So we will try and stay calm throughout the paper. You've worked hard for so many months. Let's do, the bare minimum, the basics. Avoid mistakes that are avoidable, right? Choose the correct questions to uh, attempt a good enough number of questions, keeping in mind uh, the marking scheme that is there for XAT, which is also a little unique, and we will talk about it, right? So what we will do today is just keep in mind these last minute things that are important for you to execute during your exam, right? From preparation point of view, I'm expecting that all of us are at some level in our preparation, right? uh, Keep practicing mocks for the last couple of days as well. Do not practice mocks on 3rd of January, that is one day before. Keep that to just calm yourself down, to relax, to just uh, recapitulate whatever you've prepared till now, right? But till 2nd, you can be open to giving mocks. Now, exam structure we all know is of two parts. The first part is of 170 minutes. The second part is of 10 minutes, right? The first part, which our percentile depends, and the only criteria for getting an interview call is the first part, as we know, the percentile that we get on the first part. So what do we have under our control? We do not exactly have under our control the percentile that we are going to score. Not even the exact marks that we can score in these particular sections. But at any given point in time in the exam, what is under your control is to only focus on that particular question, not the previous one, which you may or may not have solved, or not the next one that you might or might not be able to solve. Absolutely fine. But at present, when you are attempting a question, keep your 100% focus on that particular question itself, right? We will, of course, develop a broad strategy for each section, for the VLR, for DM, and for QADI. And we will stick to those strategies that we've developed based on so many mocks that you might have attempted, right? So based on the mocks, when you have a strategy for a particular section, and when I say strategy, it also means as to when do you want to attempt that particular section, or do you want to do it in parts or want to do it all at once. All of this falls under your strategy. So try and stick to that strategy that has worked for you for as long as possible. Of course, there needs to be some changes made in the strategy once you're into the exam, and you should be open to that dynamic changes that you have to do during the tests, right? But do not panic, right? This is exactly what XAT is testing you on, right? When the going gets tough, when whatever you've planned and everything is not going according to the plan, which is in most cases it will happen, right? Are you able to think on your feet? Are you able to adapt to the changing scenario? And if you are able to do that much, I think you will be good to go to get to, or to secure a call from XLRI, right? At the same time, do not omit or forget about part 2, that is the GK section. We all know by now that this section is critical during the final merit list preparation, right? Its score is used for tiebreakers. So you also want to give yourself enough chance that you are among the higher ranked people. So, right, in 20 questions, if you are able to solve 12, 13, that is a good amount of questions for GK, right? But try not to score less than 8. That should be your benchmark, not below 8, right? Marking scheme, we all know, +1 for correct, incorrect 0.25. And for every other question that you leave after the first 8 questions, so you are allowed to leave a total of 8 questions in the paper. After those 8 questions, for every question that you leave, you get a negative of 0.1, right? We all know that. That shouldn't mean that you would carelessly attempt questions. Yes, this is to encourage people to attempt more questions, apply yourself even further, the knowledge that you have gained, apply that into the questions, and you have enough time to do that. So this rule only encourages people to attempt more question, but that does not mean that we will attempt it carelessly, right? We'll still be very vigilant of what we know, what we don't know. We might make a few educated guesses here and there. All that is absolutely fine, right? GK, there's no negative marking, so let's attempt all questions and see whatever we score. Now, this will be the game changer in your XAT paper, right? The decision making section. And we've talked about this in our previous sessions also, right? I'll just reiterate what you need to do in this particular section and what we can avoid in this section. Most importantly, do not think just like a student or as someone who's working in a particular company. So do not let that bias also affect your decision. Think like a manager who's not just ideal, but is also practical, is able to manage the expectations of stakeholders involved, is able to meet the goal of the company as well as any other stakeholder that is there in the question, right? So prioritize outcomes and stakeholder balance over here, right? The outcome that is required needs to be met, and of course it needs to be a balanced approach, right? So two or three things that you can keep in mind is your answer should be ethical, it should be practically implementable, and it should take a long term approach more often than not. Sometimes there are such situations, there are such contexts where a short term solution is required. Barring those, we will always try and keep a long term approach or more balanced approach in our decision making, right? Only the facts that are stated in the case are correct facts. Everything else can be an assumption. But the facts given in the passage is the only facts that you know, right? So no bias has to be there. And therefore, you have to, first of all, ensure that your personal bias, based out of experience in your workplace or in your personal life, you have to exclude all of those information while attempting this section, right? Do not overthink, right? Do not go for extreme options. Do not go for a reactive approach. Always try to be more preventive rather than reactive. Do not select such options which are very ideal but are not practically implementable. This is something that I have encountered even during my class, that students, when I say that you have to be ethically correct, choose such options which are absolutely ideal but is not practically implementable, right? And therefore you should avoid such solutions as well. That sounds only good on the paper, but in reality might not work out, right? Let's talk about the VALR section. You first have to be very selective about what kind of questions you want to attempt. Understand, when we compare RC of a XAT to, let's say, a CAT paper, the level of question, the difficulty level of the questions are not very high. But what you will face a difficulty is in understanding the passage. The readability of the passage is a little more difficult as compared to CAT, predominantly to do with a little increased level of vocabulary that is used in such passages, right? I have been repeating this many times that you should focus on such intense topics such as psychology or politics or behavioral science. Such topics are usually seen in XAT of late. So you can choose to do such topics or focus more on such topics for clarity, and then try and attempt those selective questions. Do not try to attempt all the questions if you are not confident about a particular topic of the RC, something that you are facing difficulty to understand. You need not push those questions in VALR, right? So you can attempt selectively. Some people I know are not very comfortable with poems, and therefore you can skip poems and attempt, let's say, all the other passages, right? So take a call according to what is your strength and what is your weakness. In your verbal ability, trust the usage of the words and not just gut feeling, right? So there are certain rules of, let's say, grammar questions, right? So if you want to attempt the grammar questions, make sure that you revise all the rules and you apply those rules instead of just purely based on what you have listened before, or what your gut feeling is saying. All of those things can still be incorrect, but the rules put to grammar are absolutely correct, and therefore you should stick to that, right? For logical reasoning questions, and when I say logical reasoning, I basically mean critical reasoning questions. There are 5 to 6 questions that you will get. So attempt only those 2 3 passages or sets which you are very confident about, right? And if you've practiced enough critical reasoning, then that is one section where you can perfectly attempt all the questions as well, right? But if you've not practiced enough, still the practice on RCs would still help you get critical reasoning questions correct. Uh, but largely, it will require a little more of option elimination kind of techniques, right? So therefore, be very selective while attempting questions. At the same time, make sure that you attempt a bare minimum of 15 16 questions, right? Because to clear the cutoff, you would require somewhere around 9 10 questions correct. In fact, a score of 9 or 10, which would mean around 12 questions, 10 12 questions correct, right? So you need to attempt, even with a decent amount of accuracy, 15 16 questions has to be attempted. Do not get stuck on any of the comprehension passages or your critical reasoning passages, right? You should know when to move on, right? Especially in this paper where you can come back to the questions, right? So do not really get stuck with one difficult comprehension for very long, right? Do not overthink your grammar rules, right? Sometimes what happens that you know all the rules, but while application you're overthinking the rules. So do not try and do that. Okay. The elimination technique works the best in case of grammar questions. Okay. Yeah, your pro tip is this, that if you get confused between two options, which I'm sure all of you are facing at the moment, just reread the question stem to understand what exactly needs to be solved, what is the issue at hand, and then eliminate the one which does not either solve the question, or is too extreme, or is redundant, or not relevant to the question at all. Right? Sometimes question might seem or the option might seem correct just based on the passage facts. But once you read the question again, you'll understand that okay, this is the difference between the two options, right? Let's come to QADI, something that uh, people, or especially non-engineers, I would say, or even for engineers for that matter, but predominantly for non-engineers, will be more comfortable with XAT, because the QADI section when compared to CAT is far easier, so to say. Especially what you've seen in CAT 25 this year, the QADI will or is expected to be far easier than that. However, these questions do not test core knowledge as CAT does. What it tests is applicability of the knowledge that you have. If you've gone through some previous year questions, you will see that these questions are usually based on real examples, right? There's a scenario that is explained and then a question is asked, right? So you should be able to apply those knowledge or formulas or concepts that you've learned in these kind of questions in real life scenarios, and then solve the question. So it's a more kind of a fun paper rather than just testing your knowledge, which also means that there will be a lot of long questions, lengthy questions, wordy questions. Do not get bogged down by such questions, right? If it's a wordy question, most often than not, it is just explaining the question even better for you to understand, right? So sometimes you might not get the technical terms that are usually used in mathematics, but you can, while a question is explained using a scenario, you get to understand it far better. So from that sense, do not get bogged down by lengthy questions. As I said, there's enough time, so you can spend time on each and every question, but start with your comfort areas, right? Let's also ensure that we use our time judiciously, and we spend time on such questions which we are able to solve, rather than on such questions that we have absolutely no idea with. So let's start with your comfort areas, and I will strongly urge that arithmetic and algebra are such areas which can easily be your strong sections, especially arithmetic, because that any which ways you will have to practice arithmetic. You have to ace arithmetic also to get your DI in place. DI largely is based on concepts we've learned in arithmetic, right? So what you can do is you can first of all take a couple of minutes to scan through questions uh, and select those easy ones and solve those at the same time, right? The questions that you know that you will be able to solve within a couple of minutes, solve those at the same time. At the same time, keep marking such questions which you think you will be able to solve but might take a lot of time. And which also means that we have absolutely eliminated few such questions that we know we will not be able to solve, right? And let's say an approximately 18 questions that you get on QA, you should be able to do six at the first attempt itself. You should be able to mark at least six questions that you will attempt later, which might take a little more time, and you can eliminate up to six, right? So, and then you go ahead and attempt the remaining six questions that you have marked, which essentially means that we have now covered a good ground of 12 attempts where uh, you know even uh, with just a decent amount of accuracy, I'm hoping that we can get all five or six easy questions correct. We can get at least three, four correct among the six questions that we've marked later. So approximately eight, nine questions we have in place from the QA section only. And then the game changer of the section, which is the DI section, which has 12 questions. And if you've done arithmetic well enough, I think all 12 questions can be aced in the DI section. So that is your game changer. Focus on the DI questions. 12 questions or 10 questions in DI can easily be attempted all at once. So we are targeting about 20 questions attempt in QADI if we do it strategically, right? And with, let's say, time limit of approximately 70 to 80 minutes in QADL, you give at least 40 minutes to QA, where we are again targeting to solve about 10, 12 questions, about 10 questions in 40 minutes, which is like more than enough time. And then you give half an hour to DI, 10, 12 questions. Again, more than enough time, half an hour. So about 70 to 80 minutes you can give to your QADI section. About 1 hour to 70 minutes, about 60 to 70 minutes you give to your VALR section, depending upon what your speed really is, right? And then we are still left with about 40 minutes. And those 40 minutes you can allot to your DM section. And DM section, honestly speaking, if you've practiced enough, you can go ahead and attempt all seven sets, all 21 questions. And you should be able to get somewhere around 15, 16 marks, which is, I think, a very good score, right? So that should be your approximately time management, how you should be doing. Now, these are number of attempts that you should, ideal number of attempts for you to clear the cutoff in each section. Once you clear the cutoff in each section, automatically means that you will land somewhere around 95 percentile. And depending upon what or how much score were you able to maximize in each of the sections. Depending upon that, your final percentile might vary between 95 to 100, right? But these are ideal number of attempts with a good, decent accuracy of about 80%, 80% accuracy, right? So yeah, in decision making, you should attempt about 14, 15 questions at least. Verbal ability, as I already mentioned, 15, 16 questions are a good number of attempts. And in QADI, 14 questions, about 10 to 14 questions just to clear the cutoff, because the cutoff usually goes around 8 or 9 marks. But this is the section where you can maximize your score. Let's understand that at 95 percentile overall, if you clear all the cutoffs, you get about 95 percentile in total, which might be enough to get you a call for XLRI, but it's not enough to convert that call. Let me be very honest. Below 98 percentile in that really makes it very, very tough to convert those calls, right? Where the selection ratio might be about 1 out of 3, 1 out of 4 candidates above 98, 99 percentile. It might be as low as 1 out of 15 below 98 percentile, right? So let's be very careful about the fact that we need not to clear the cutoffs in all sections, but at least maximize the score in one of the sections. Okay, so I'll just take a few questions that people have asked. So for VLR, if my grammar is weak, can I stick to PYQ? Yes, you can. For now, in these last moments, you can stick to the PYQs. But again, if your grammar is weak, be very careful about attempting the grammar questions. I would then urge you to stick to RCs and let's say your critical reasoning questions. Okay. And for QADI, I think, see, you will have to clear the sectional cutoff. So you can't just stick with 2 sections and leave QADI altogether. What you can definitely do is practice arithmetic and DI so that you get somewhere around 4 questions from arithmetic and about 12 questions of DI. So out of 16, even if you solve, let's say 10, 12 questions with good accuracy, you should be able to clear the sectional cutoff. Right. So let's understand that if a particular section is weak, I can't leave it altogether. But what I can do is, the best thing to do is to make sure that you clear the cutoff in that particular section and then try and maximize the score in other sections. Right. That is the best way to look at it. Now, what do you do on the exam day? As I said, and as most, you know, athletes, famous athletes, also, you know, suggest that you control the controllables, right? Get a good night's sleep one day before and reach the center early. Do not be in a hassle. Do not be over occupied in your mind with other things. Stay very clear in your head. Do not panic during the exam day. Just keep telling yourself, keep reminding yourself that you've prepared well enough, right? And it is okay to be nervous on that particular day. Do not try to fight that nervousness, and which really creates panic, right? So you need not fight that nervousness. Be absolutely okay with it because you've prepared well, and that is why you are nervous that uh, the outcome is somewhere based on this particular exam, right? But that is absolutely fine. That much fire under you will just help you perform better, right? So be very confident and clear when you enter the exam hall. I know that most of you know all the instructions, but still go ahead and read all the instruction. It just calms your nerves down. It just gets you into that mental space of giving the exam a couple of minutes before the exam. So it's kind of a warm up for you, right? And then you can, in a good rhythm, you can start your exam. Start with the strategy that you have, made for yourself, and then continue with it for as long as you can. Take a couple of minutes break wherever you think that, it's not going what I planned, according to what I planned. So just take a couple of minutes to calm yourself down, remove all negative thoughts, understand that if the paper is tough, it is going to be tough for everyone. It's a relative marking thing. So therefore, if it's tough for everyone, the cutoffs are going to come down, which means you still have a good shot at clearing the cutoff. And which also means that now if you perform better in the other two sections or the other sections, which some of the other people will not because they've panicked, it just means that you will perform much better than the others, right? So whenever it's a difficult paper, understand that if prepared well, a difficult paper works in your favor. If you just maintain your calm, just remind yourself that it is going to be tough for everyone, and therefore the cutoffs are going to be very less, right? There is this habit of repeatedly changing your answers, especially in case of DM and RCs. Do not do that, right? Uh, Go through the question, go through the passage properly, uh, answer the question by eliminating options, and be confident about that one answer that you've chose to mark. That is it. If you get into the habit of repeatedly changing your answers, it will then confuse you in every question. So just stick with your answer, even if that is incorrect in one particular question. You've at least ensured that you are not going to make other questions incorrect because of this, right? So just stick with your answer. When once you decide that this is your option, and this is something that you must have encountered in your exam as well, that you keep switching between answers, and finally the answer that you've marked is incorrect. And the most common logic behind that is that you've overthought. That is it. So let's not get into that habit of overthinking my answers. I'll just mark whatever I feel is, or according to the question, whatever I felt was the right choice, is a well reasoned choice, so to say, and therefore I have gone with that answer. That is it, right? Now, that is a champion mindset that you have to go into with the test, right? Stay calm, be very clear, and that will help you make better decisions, right? You can be very emotional about this being the last important exam for a tier 1 college, and therefore this is your last chance, etc., etc. But all of those things on that particular day, on those 3 hours, you have to keep out of your mind. That emotional state is only going to impact your thinking ability, and on that particular day you need to be on your best thinking capability, right? And that is what staying calm will help you. So just stay calm, be very clear in your mind, and ace the exam. As I said, it does not test how much you know, but it really tests how you think under pressure and how you perform under pressure, right? So, yes, there will be situations where you will feel lost, you will feel that it's not going as I planned. Absolutely fine. Absolutely fine. Do not panic. Let's do better in whatever is still left. And you can still get a call. That is it, right? You've done the hard work. You've just prepared the best that you can. So you just have to trust your process yourself. And you should walk into that exam hall with confidence, not fear, right? That is it from my side. All the best for 4th of January. I hope all of you do the best of your potential. Uh, and therefore, uh, we'll see you on the other side once you clear the exam and start your preparation for interviews, right? All the best. Okay, there's a question that I'm getting. Right. So, Aniket, I think your score of 34 will land you somewhere around 94, 93, 94 percentile approximately. Uh, but what will be a problem is your VA score. It might not clear the cutoff, just might miss the cutoff. And therefore, I think what you should be doing right now is focusing a lot on RCs, practicing about 20 questions on RCs, about 10 questions on critical reasoning on a daily basis, so that you get into a good rhythm, uh, and so that you can solve more questions on VALR to get your score across 10. And if you just keep up your DM score to 10, 12, QADI to 14 plus, I think you will be very good to go with a score of 38 plus, which gives you a good shot at XLRI. Nikhil, at the last moment, I would suggest that you solve DM questions for the past 15 years at least, right? Uh, Revise them properly, see the patterns in those questions. As I said, you can watch the DM, my talk on the DM section as well, where I've explained how to approach DM questions, what exactly XLRI is looking for. And therefore, that should help you eventually. And practicing previous year questions for the last 15 years, I think in the last moment is going to help a lot. Right. So that is it from my side. Thank you, guys.